this meeting, are we? Yep, we're good to go.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. So this is Craig Mueller at MicroStrategy. So I'm going to, I guess, walk through the data upload and report creation quickly. The one thing I wanted to point out, and I think this was initially sent out as a good resource for
Did we lose you?
Craig, are you still there?
Yes, I am. I'm sorry. Here I am.
Okay. Can I just say one thing? Can you make your screen just a little bit bigger? We have a large crowd and it's very small on the screen.
I believe I'm showing the entire screen of my monitor. I'm not really sure how to make it larger. Is the font small? Is it better if I, does that help?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So one thing I'll point out, we can send this as a follow-up. For anyone who's new to MicroStrategy and who would like to learn how to do kind of some simple data uploading and dashboard creation, this is a quick channel that you can see it's 13 videos. Each one's about 2 minutes long, and it walks through how to upload data from an Excel file, how to connect to a database, how to maybe do some data wrangling, which is essentially like some cleanup of the data, and then building things, right? Whether it's building a dashboard or building a report, whatever it may be. So I can send that as a follow-up that I think may be somewhat helpful for the folks on the call. So this is the environment that we provided for the group. This is MicroStrategy Web, and essentially when you log in with your user, you should have all of the same options that you see here. The first place I suppose we'll start is the uploading data, I guess, component, which is right here in the center called Add External Data. Essentially, when you click on this, it's going to give you a number of different data source options that you can upload from. For, I believe in this case, we're mainly focused on uploading kind of simple data files like Excel sheets or CSV files. But you can see if you kind of scan across, there are dozens and dozens of other data sources, including databases, big data sources, even uploading data from social media or cloud-hosted applications. So there's a lot that you can do as far as the types of data that you can connect to. And once you connect to it, the process of uploading it is the same, right? So once you've kind of connected to your data source, the next kind of following steps are the same. So if I click on Add from File, from here I can either, if I click Choose Files, it's going to, launch a little browser window where I can pick a file. So I'll use maybe this procurement data here. So it's just a simple Excel file. And from here, if I'm good with kind of the way the data is, as far as I don't think there's any issues with the quality of the data, or pretty confident it's just going to import work nicely, I can click Finish. And essentially what it's doing is it's taking a copy of that data from that source, that Excel file, and it's uploading it to the MicroStrategy environment for you to be able to analyze and report. So from here, let's say I won't change the name. I'll just click Save. Gave it a name, and now you can see it's uploading or publishing that data. So as soon as it's done, then you'll get a screen that says, what do you want to do next? For this crowd, this audience, I think the main thing to do would be to create dashboard. And here now we're actually in the designer, right? So once you've uploaded your data, the reporting interface, and there are a couple options for, I guess the reporting views that you have, but this is a pretty simple one to start with. And you can see on the left-hand side, here's our data. And as I drag options in, it will start to generate a report, right? So if I wanted to know, how many dollars were spent across this procurement vehicle, I can drag that in. You can see now, here's that number. And if I want to break it by, say, agency, I can drag agency in. Oops, let me reverse this. So I can see, here are my agencies, here's my dollars. And you can kind of continue to add data in, right? A nice feature, like we've got date-related data here. You can create additional time-related values. So once you get to this point, you can you kind of start to build your reports. What I wanted to show just very quickly is if you don't, so that's one option, just to basically import the data set as is, right? The other option is if I click that same file, instead of clicking finish, I'm going to click prepare. And what prepare does is essentially pulls in a subset of that data, and I can preview it and make changes if I'd like, as far as you know, maybe let's see, maybe I want my issue date is actually a date value, not a text, right? So I can change the data types. You do lots of kind of different things with as far as like renaming the columns or changing the data types. One step further, and this is, again, there's a quick video that kind of discusses how this works, but is what's called data wrangling. And essentially it's like a data cleanup. So here, a little bit more detail, I guess, or at least more control. But essentially it's showing you the same data set we were looking at before, and I have a set of functions that I can apply to it. So if I wanted to make a change to a column, maybe I guess remove anything after 2015. So I just have kind of October 21st, or I guess that date section. I can highlight that column and say, you know, extract after, and I'll do a other, and I'll say 2015, and click apply, and you should see it's created that as a new column here, right? Or I can remove or delete that same thing, right? So if I wanted to say, you know, remove characters after or before, right? So the same thing. So there's a number of different wrangling options or things you can apply to your data. Don't really have in 30 minutes time to go through all of them. I mean, certainly if you have questions and you're trying this, I'd be happy to kind of walk you through it or help you out. But this is another option to basically cleanse or clean your data so that it's more accurate and consistent for reporting. Are there any questions so far before I shift gears?
We don't have to pre-format our existing CSV file. We just load it in as it is.
That you can, yes, you that is correct. You can upload it as is. There's no requirement to make any changes to it.
Oh. So we can manipulate after the fact, not before.
You can, yeah. So that's a good question. So you can, you know, if for example I upload some data and I find out that I need to make some changes, you can always go back into that, and I'll show that right now. It's a great question. I appreciate that. Whoops. So let's say I bring this data set in, it publishes, and then I can, you know, I start building a dashboard on it. I can immediately go back into that data set and modify it, right? So, you know, if I'm here and I'm looking at my close dates and my dollar amounts, and I notice something inconsistent, I can go in to my data set here and say edit data set. And essentially it will allow me to go right back into that preview screen where I can make some changes or you know, kind of cleanse the data some more. You can jump right back in, and once you're done, you know, you're back into your designer interface and can continue building out your dashboard or reports. Good question.
Thank
so
you.
yeah, thank you. So some other, I guess, things I'll point out in the dashboarding interface. So we talked about your data sets on the left, and you can have more than one data set. So right now we just have this single one, but if you wanted to import multiple spreadsheets, or you wanted to connect a spreadsheet to a database, you can go in and continue to add additional data sets and actually blend them together. So let's say you had two different data sets, both of which had state within them. You could import your second data set, right-click on your state value, and there'll be an option to link that to the other data set. We call that data blending. So a lot you can do with the data itself. Just to the right of that, the editor, you see that's where, as I drag elements from my data set into my dashboard, it makes changes for it. So let's say for my issue date, I actually want to create a year. I think I've got a couple years worth of data in here, and I'll put this in my columns. So now I've got my agency and then my years from 2010 to 2015, right? So making some changes there. In addition to your editor, within this you also have a filter panel. So this one, as I drag objects in, so maybe I drag my quote status in, and I only want to look at partially awarded, right? So essentially what this does is it's a filter that filters anything on the right of it, anything within my dashboard panel. So there's your filter, and then finally within this you have a lot of different formatting options. So whether it's changing the font colors or styles, or changing the alignment of things, making it the cell padding, or the adjustments to kind of always fit the container. There are too many options in here for me to go through again in a short amount of time, but likely if there's something you're trying to do as far as colors or alignments or fonts, you can find that within your formatting tab. The panel, or I guess the dashboard canvas we would call it, you can see here, it starts off with just a single visualization or a single object, but you can add multiple visualizations and can kind of configure them just by clicking and dragging them around on your panel to set up kind of multiple multiple visualizations in a single dashboard, right? And then on the far right, you've got all of your visualization options. So right now we're looking at this as a grid. Perhaps I wanted to start like this is fine. I'll leave this as a grid. I'll make the maybe I'll put this over here. This will be maybe, let's see, I'll create another. I guess while I'm doing this, is this helpful? Is this kind of what the group was looking to see while on this call?
That's a yes from this group.
Okay, great. So so now you can see.
That's a yes. Yes, definitely.
Okay, perfect.
Can I mention one more thing? Can you also, somebody put a question up, can multiple data sheets be uploaded? I think you mentioned that already, but if you didn't, could you mention it again, please?
Yes, yeah, the answer to that is yes, absolutely. So whether, you can do it a couple different ways, but up at the top you'll see a couple different, like where there's a plus icon, you can either add, add data, so you can add, another source, and if I click add external data, it's going to bring up that same screen that we saw from the very beginning, and I can say I want to add another Excel file, or I want to, whatever it may be, you can add those, and then build visualizations independently of those two data sets, or if those data sets have some commonality, you can join them together. And essentially, say I had another data set that had workload, or like hours worked based on state level data, I could drag my state in, look at the dollars, the quote prices from data set 1 and the hours worked from data set 2, and actually create calculations between those. So a lot of capability as far as adding multiple data sets and relating and blending them together. So I'm going to remove my year from this grid just so it looks a little bit easier to see. So here I've got a grid of all of my agencies and metric. I can do, in any of these, I can do lots of options, right? I can do different types of sorting. I can create calculations. So maybe I want to do, what's my average quote price per, say, procurement per agency. I can create an average measurement just by right-clicking and saying, create a calculation. So now I can see, on average, the Air Force spends around $70,000 per procurement versus, the total spend of, $3.5 million or so. On the right, you can see I've created a line graph. So again, I started as a grid, right? So I can always switch visualization. So if this is a line graph now, I can switch it back to a grid and see it, just as a standard grid. But as I click through these visualizations, it will change it to look at it, in that type of visualization, in this case, a line chart. All right, so now I've got a monthly time chart of my dollars spent, and you can even relate the two things where, let's say I want to look kind of at the Air Force in particular as a trend. Once I have the visualization highlighted, I can click the down arrow here and say use as filter. And you can see I've got two options, visualization 2 and 3. This is number 2 and number 3 is just behind it. So I'll select 2. And now if I choose the Air Force, it'll show me, you can see it's updating the trend line there. Pretty easy to kind of create those relationships. And you can multi-select, so if I wanted to see these top 4, I can grab those. And you can kind of continue to build out your visualization, right? So if I wanted to add an additional line per agency, I can just drag agency into my break buy and color buy. And now I'll see, maybe I want to look at my, the Air Force spending, which sees the blue line compared to the Navy. Now I should see, 2 different lines, one for each agency, right? And so you can, the process of building is pretty much, what we're showing right now, right? As you're dragging objects from your data sets to your editor here, it's going to populate whatever visualization you have highlighted. One thing I'll point out is keep in mind that you see right now, like visualization 3 is highlighted in blue. If you're going to make a change to a visualization, just make sure it's targeted, meaning that you notice when I click visualization 1, it puts a blue border around it, and then in my editor I see, it has agency in these 2 measures, right? Versus visualization 2, it's got that same measure and then month and agency. So it may, you may be clicking around and wondering why it's not changing what it is that you want to change. It's likely that you just don't have it selected. So keep an eye out for that. In addition to, I guess, building out the visualizations, and there are dozens in here that you can utilize, you can also create, additional calculations, right? So if I wanted to, maybe I wanted a count of the distinct scheduled numbers that we have in our data set, I can right-click on schedule name and duplicate as metric. So now I've got a count of schedules, so I can see, I have 29 different schedules in this data set. Then I could look at, of those 29, maybe I want to look at, how many different schedules are there. It looks like, oh, we still have this filter just for partially awarded. So if I add in awarded, now I can see, how many different schedules per the award status. You can also see this in, my trend lines and things. So you can build additional measures within your data. Simple as right-clicking on one and creating a metric, or you saw creating an average. There's also a pretty comprehensive editor to create a number of different calculations. Again, a lot of capability in here. Don't have time to show all of it, but there are 300 functions out of the box, more than 300 that you can leverage, whether it's doing leading like moving averages or weighted averages, standard deviations, lots of different excuse me, ranking functions. If you want to say show me the top 10 or quartile or quintile a number of data sets, you can do that. So lots of functions that you can build out custom metrics pretty easily. Any additional questions before? I guess we've got about 8 minutes, so I just want to make sure we're staying on track.
Is there a reporting capability?
A reporting, so instead of kind of a visualization, just like a standard kind of grid report.
Like to show the final results, like for a report. If someone wanted to, we've already done the calculations and everything, and the third party wants to come in and see the results.
So if you create this visualization and click save, once it's been created, once you've built it, it's a part of the environment that gets saved within the MicroStrategy metadata, so that now anyone who has access to the environment would be able to, the one that I just built here, I could click on it and run it. And most folks, they would see it like basically in what's called like presentation mode, right? So if I this is the kind of the final report. It's got some filtering. It's still interactive, but it is kind of the presentation view of the data set.
This is Air University. We got a question about, well, I actually got a couple of questions. With that report, it sounds like you're saying the person has to log in and look at it. Is there a way it can be sent via like a PDF or some other version? Or turned into a PowerPoint slide?
Yes, there are different ways to export these. So you can export to PDF the entire dashboard. You can also export individual objects as say an Excel file or PDF or just the data. So I guess one of the big differences that we offer from a MicroStrategy perspective is, this is just one type of reporting. It's more self-service data visualization, but we also offer, enterprise type reports and banded reports that are more print perfect or constructed in a way that are, just very consistent number of pages, repeated sections, and you can set up like scheduled deliveries of these. So, say you get new data each day, at 8 a.m., the MicroStrategy engine can distribute, a report to each person who is registered to receive that report, and it's like an automated delivery system, right? Or it could export the report to a file server somewhere that people can access.
A follow-up question is your data. Can it also show 100% stacked bar charts? There are some folks here that like to have that visualization.
There are, yes. So if you, if we, let's see, did I lose my metric here? Yes, you can. So there are down here, like so for bar charts, you see right now we have it clustered. If I just choose stacked, it'll show me, stacked as a number, or if I want to look at it as a percent, it'll show me. So now I can see, 56% of my schedules were in an award status versus 43% were partially awarded. So there are, again, like kind of how we looked at the formatting options for the grid, there are also a number of different formatting options for each visualization.
Yeah, look, Air University has some competitive folks, and they like to see multiple stacked bar across, so they could compare like class or seminar 1 to seminar 2. So can it do that?
It could, yeah. So if I just drug in state. I know state's not the exact same thing, but here you can see, each state with its own bar, and the number, yeah. So as a percent, right? And again, you can.
That looks wonderful. Thank you.
Sure. All right, great. So yeah, if there are more questions, I think that's a good way to spend the last few minutes. If there are others, I'd be happy to answer.
We have one here.
Can you demonstrate just a piece of a finished report, a print report that's like you find, Chris, a formal report? Can you demonstrate
Or do you have a
page or something?
Yes, sure. Let me find one for you real quick. This is a different environment, so I can't. Don't think I'll be able to share it with you. As a, let's see. Actually, let me go.
This is Air University with one more question, and we actually posted it in the chat about connecting to like Canvas or Unit 4 Learning Management System or Student Information System.
So that we may have to follow up on. I haven't. I guess need a little bit more detail on those as data sources as far as what actual, is it like in an Oracle database or is it in a SQL Server, or what type of mechanism is it? But this is a completed, what we would call like an enterprise report. It's on congressional district spending. You can see, essentially in a web view, it's, you've got a title page, some additional details, and then essentially you'll just have section after section of, here's a trend of financial assistance versus number of grants. for each congressional district, and then it breaks it down by the individual grantees. And you can filter it to say, only show me a particular program, or only show me a particular year. And as I make selections, it's going to filter it down. The nice thing about these is that they're designed to be print perfect. So here's that same report as a PDF. And as I scroll through, it looks identical to what it looked like in web. And you can set these up to be delivered automatically or proactively based on some condition, right? So if you've got a training facility where their kind of average score has fallen beneath a certain threshold, MicroStrategy can monitor that and then send out kind of proactive notifications or alerts to say, or maybe there's a set of individuals who are, behind on a certain certification. You could send an email that says, hey, here's a list of folks we need to get in to do a new certification, that sort of thing. So kind of really taking it more like a proactive approach as opposed to building a dashboard and looking at it and saying, okay, now what do I do?
Quick question. Do you set up that enterprise solution, or do we have the capability of doing it in-house here?
It depends, right? We have different customers who build their own, with a little bit of training or a little bit of, understanding of MicroStrategy. There's a lot that our customers do on their own. We also have lots of, we have an internal team that does, help with installations and kind of getting up and running. We also have a lot of different training programs to get, what ends up typically happening is, say for a normal deployment of say 500 users, you may have, 3 or 4 who are kind of trained in the overall MicroStrategy platform, so like how to administer it, how to initially set it up, and those folks go through, say a few days or a week of training to kind of understand how all that works. Most end users though can really learn this stuff in a day or two. It's pretty intuitive, pretty easy for end users to pick it up and build things on their own too, not just kind of consume canned reports, but do some ad hoc reporting.
So I hate to do this because this has been valuable, I think, to everybody, but we do need to go to our next meeting. Everybody in all the groups, if you have questions, please submit them to us. We'll get them back to MicroStrategy. I think there are a couple of items that are takeaways right now. I thank you very much, Craig and Chris. This is great.
Appreciate the time. Thank you all.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that's the big question.